Welcome to Primetime, everybody. I'm your host, Hunter Chambliss. I'm joined by my co-host, Chad and Carrie. How's it going, guys?
It's going great.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today, Chad?
We are talking about Pearl, the sequel to X, which we covered not too long ago, but this is also written and directed by Mr. Ty West, starring Mia Goth.
Mia Goth.
And amongst others, I think the new Superman is in this movie.
Yep, David Cornswell.
But yeah, we go back to Pearl when she was young and curious and has dreams. And does she succeed? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, Mia Goth is also credited as a co-writer for this film as well, along with Ty West.
Nice.
Because her and Ty West came up with this kind of, on the set of X, they came up with this backstory for Pearl together. So when they started writing the script, he gave her writing credit for helping come up with the idea. I don't know how much she had involved with the actual script writing, but because she came up with the titular backstory for Pearl, he gave her writing credit.
Nice.
And she's also executive producer as well.
It does feel like it's a very tight-knit, collaborative, series with Ty and Mia. So that's great.
That's really cool because I feel like, especially for young women like Mia Goth, and even for women in general, honestly, it's fairly difficult to get those sorts of executive producer credits. That was a big issue with like Neve Campbell.
I was about to say, we've touched on this.
Yeah, we've talked about this. So I think it's very, very cool that she, like, Ty West, like, or I don't know, I don't want to say Ty West, but whoever, and that she got, her credit where credit was due. She got probably some sort of creative control to an extent. So that is really, really cool, especially for a younger woman in this industry.
Just like with Neve Campbell being the face of Scream, she's the face of this trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yep. So, according to some of the things I found online, it is said that, West began co-writing a prequel script stemming from his collaboration with Goth while filming X. Motivated by the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on cinema, filming started in New Zealand immediately after the first film. So what's cool is the budget for this movie is only, I think, $1 million because they reused a lot of the sets. They reused the X barn scene. They just had to add new stuff to it, and then some of the new actors didn't cost that much to get them on because they were relatively unknown at the time. So I think it's like $1 million or $2 million budget for this one.
I mean, honestly, it's actually really cool that, it was filmed, I guess, around like COVID, because Pearl takes place during the Spanish flu. So they were able to make this during a time of a pandemic, about a time of a different pandemic.
Yeah.
So long ago.
Yep. And like, there's even like references to like wear your mask, stay away from people, like, because again, the great thing about this movie is that Pearl's mother may seem like the bad person, but when you strip her back, she is someone who is an immigrant who is, hurt and trying to live in this life of poverty without her husband. So you kind of see both ways in like, you feel for Pearl and the mother.
Quickly, that's a great thought, Hunter. Quickly, before we dive into it, I think we should, as we normally do, give our non-spoiler thoughts and then dip into actual spoiler territory.
Yeah.
Hunter, do you want to start this time?
Yeah. So I've only watched this twice. I watched it when it first came out, and then I watched it now on a rewatch. This movie actually goes by faster, has a quicker pace than I remember it having the first time I watched it. And that's to its benefit because you do get these long stretches of amazing sequences, especially like a 6-minute close shot of Mia Goth doing this amazing speech at the end. And it's never boring. Like, I never want to take my eyes off of it. I'm always hooked to the screen. I think I still prefer X just because I have more fun with it. and there's like, you know, really cool kills and things like that. But Pearl is a really good period piece about, you know, fame and success and what people and what will drive somebody to achieve more than they think they're worth. I really love Pearl, and I hope Maxine really succeeds, because if so, then we've got a fantastic trilogy on our hands.
Totally. Carrie.
Yeah. This is also my second time watching it. I think Chad and I watched it. We didn't see it in theaters. It must have been when it came streaming. But I actually liked it better this time. And not that I disliked it the first time I watched it. I wasn't as in love with it as I felt like a lot of people are. I think I liked it even better the second time. And I think especially watching it back to back with X, like you're just able to pick up on the little, like there's actually quite a few lines of dialogue that are like repeated throughout the movie. And it's very interesting because sometimes it's Mia Goth delivering the same lines that she did in X, but either she delivered them in X as Maxine, and now she's delivering them as Pearl, and the delivery is just so different. Or it's a young Pearl said the line, and then now or an old Pearl said the line in X, and young Pearl says it in Pearl. I don't know. It's just she is such a great actress. Like, she just like is able. The lines just have completely different meaning, like based on the character, and they're just cool little callbacks. And they really, I feel like, strongly show the parallels between Maxine and Pearl even more.
Just to speak on that real quick, I did notice, like you do have an X. Maxine does this, and then in Pearl does this. Where like the stuff about like her carrying the milk to the barn door, and it's just really cool to like remember that and be like, you know, oh, this is really cool. They're actually paying attention between the continuity and, you know, different shots between the films to make them feel like, you know, two parts of like one big whole, even though both movies can totally stand on their own. The transitioning into my thoughts about Pearl, I really like Pearl. Before, when I first watched X and then Pearl, X was a slight disappointment for me, and then Pearl I wanted to like more, and I did. I liked it more than I liked X, so I've always liked Pearl. And then going back and, you know, if you guys, you know, go ahead and watch our X review, I liked X more the second time watching it. Especially after that conversation that we had in that video, because we've talked a lot about, you know, the different stuff that we took from X, and I saw it in a different light after having a great conversation with Hunter and Carrie, and then now I appreciate X a lot more. I still think I prefer Pearl, but just slightly. It's a lot closer than it was, and I think it's because Pearl feels like more of like the artistic. It's not just a slasher. It feels like, you know, I love slashers, so I'm not trying to get down on that genre, but it feels more like a psychological character piece with one character basically losing her GD mind, goddamn mind, and you know, just kind of like the breakdown of a family that really never had a chance, and they don't have a lot, and to them the world just takes from you and is just terrible and the worst. So you can totally understand all of the characters' motivations, and you know, Pearl is she's like both unhinged, but then also so sweet at times and like innocent seeming until she's not. And then it's like, for me, it's like kind of bridging those two worlds of Pearl is just so interesting. I think Mia Goth, this is probably the best performance I've ever seen from her. And that's including her as Pearl in X and as Maxine in X.
Yeah.
She'll top it in Maxine, but Pearl, I just really, really love this performance from her. Honestly, I still don't, just because it's a genre film, I still don't understand how the hell she didn't get an Oscar nomination for that performance.
Yep.
Because it's
That's
just
a Toni Collette moment right there.
It is. She is just as good as Toni Collette, I think, in Pearl.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's doing so much in it. And yeah, I don't know. I love the color. I love the vibe where they have, like, you know, kind of like colorful, like happy seeming sequences, but everything in like their lives is basically misery. And so you can totally see Pearl's desire to want to go on to bigger and better things and become someone and not end up like her parents. And, you know, I love that drive. So I don't know. It feels, I don't know what I'm trying to say, to be honest, but it's, I feel like it's a very good horror movie, but just very different too. And I feel like X is a little bit of like the same about like what we've gotten a lot, but it also does feel also artistic. But yeah, I don't know. Pearl just feels more my vibe. I'm interested to get into the discussion about it, because there's a lot of sequences and stuff that I really love, and I also had a lot of fun with this one and laughed a lot too. There's one part that I kind of skipped over, but
I think I know which one it is.
A few parts, actually, a couple parts, but yeah, I love it. I think it's great. Just slightly above X. They're kind of tied almost, but I think if I wanted to throw one on, I'd probably want to watch Pearl more. So, yeah,
that's interesting. To me, so getting into spoiler talk now, one thing I want to bring up, when Pearl at the very beginning is in her overalls and she's going out to feed the animals, I love that parallel that she's wearing the exact same thing Maxine is wearing during the farmer's daughter scene in X, which then makes Pearl watching that scene with Maxine almost like she's watching herself when she was younger, because then you see that she wore that exact same thing when she was younger.
Yeah.
So it's like, not only are you watching yourself, but like someone who's wearing almost the exact same clothes you were wearing, but they're taking this and making it a perverse way while you're doing it as a job. So it's kind of like a back and forth type thing.
And in that way, you can see that Pearl is doing the work that a good prequel would do in strengthening certain character stuff from X.
Yeah. So we open up, by the way, I know a lot of people have said this, and I credit the Demi podcast for kind of telling me this. I got major Wizard of Oz vibes from Pearl.
I can see that, except for, you know, Dorothy does not go that far with the Scarecrow. So,
to be fair, according to what Chelsea said on Dead Meats, she was like, in the novel, the Scarecrow is one of the persons that Dorothy wants to end up with, like in real life. Like, they're right around the same age, and
that's not true.
Are seen to get together.
Hunter,
that's not true. I don't know what novel it is. It's not. Well, I guess it's maybe a different novel than The Wizard of Oz.
Well, I was gonna say Carrie has actually been reading the Frank L. Baum Wizard of Oz novels to Elliot.
It must be like a different novel, but the original Wizard of Oz book, no.
It feels like it would be kind of a weird story.
She's like a very little girl.
Yeah.
In the
it's almost like Alice in Wonderland, where she's like 12 or something like that. I mean, obviously
she's younger than 12, you know. It's maybe it doesn't say,
because obviously Judy Garland at the time was probably like, I don't know, 15,
like 14 or something. Yeah.
So, and then the Scarecrow is a much older man, even though I don't know if scarecrows have ages like that, but we're getting into a weird conversation.
We are.
I think we should move on, but that's an interesting.
There must be like because there's a ton of books that are based on the Wizard of Oz story, so it must be like another.
It could be, or maybe she read some fan fiction.
Yeah,
that could be it.
That shit, Dorothy and Scarecrow.
But I like the whole like Wizard of Oz element of it, where it's like, Pearl is like Dorothy who wants to get away from home, but she even has a little bit of Mrs. Gulch in her when she's riding her bike, and she looks like Mrs. Gulch from the movie.
I was talking to Carrie about that, and I was like, I think the score was kind of mimicking the. I was like, all right, this is probably why I like Pearl a lot, is because I love the Wizard of Oz. So,
but also, her mother could be seen as the Wicked Witch of the West, who then gets water and fire and water spilled on her in her death scene.
Oh yeah,
that's a good point.
So you just got kind of like these little elements of like the Wizard of Oz that you can kind of pick out in the movie as well.
Yeah.
I also love how this movie kind of deals with mental health, but not understanding what that is. Like they keep calling it a sickness because Pearl doesn't know what's wrong with her. So like it kind of deals with like her mental health and not really knowing what that is as well.
Yeah.
The psychological stuff in the movie I think is really interesting because you have like the literal sickness that they're talking about with the plague that I mentioned earlier, and the parents, or at least the mom, is very worried about her like bringing that back because I guess they don't really go out; they get stuff delivered and stuff like that, and so Pearl going into town so much.
Get stuff delivered. I think they like grow stuff mostly.
Well, they got like the pig delivered, and
it was a gift from.
Okay, well, I'm wrong on that front, as I normally do say a lot incorrect. Gary will point them out.
The pig thing is actually interesting because Pearl's mother says, "I don't want this. I don't deal with handouts." So that's why the pig gets left on the porch the entire movie when it shows up.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead because we're talking about the pig. That's the thing that like I just really like angers me and makes me sad. So I try to skip over any parts that show the pig because I just can't. I don't like animal abuse like that and torture and things like that. Just what?
Oh no, I think it's just food.
Yeah,
it is a pig that was killed and then it's going to waste on someone's porch.
Yeah.
So that really upsets me, although it's used very interestingly at the end. So
yeah, it is.
And we'll get there, but I just wanted to say like that's one part that I just don't like to see it. So I just skip over that a lot. And then the other thing is in the very beginning when she kills the goose. And feeds it to the alligator. I try to skip over that whole thing, even though it's kind of like an animal that she just hates, and it's almost like a battle.
What are you doing here, Mr. Goose?
So I don't know. I mean, I guess if you have an alligator and you want to feed it,
which we also find out the name of her alligator, which is Theta.
Yeah.
Which I believe it is named after a lot of like all of her animals are named after different movie stars. So like you got Charlie in there, which is Charlie Chaplin. Theta is what was her name? It's like a famous woman from the 20s era movies.
I guess.
So like all of her animals are named after like people she would name their animals after.
Yeah. And I guess the alligator, because I don't think alligators are like turtles. I don't think they live for 60 years. So unless that is the same alligator, I think it might have been like one of the babies that she doesn't freaking crush or whatever.
Yeah. Maybe.
And she just like keeps having different alligators, and trains them, I guess. But I mean, I guess going back to the mental health topic that Hunter brought up, because got a sidetrack. Sorry. I think it's really interesting because like the whole psyche of Pearl. She'll be very like kind of sweet and innocent at one part, and then she'll go out and be very curious, and then when she gets angry, oh my god, she gets so angry, just screaming, and just like we're in spoiler territory, when she kills Superman,
the projectionist. When she kills Superman, yeah,
the projectionist, she's just screaming at him, kills him, and then keeps screaming at him as he's dying. Just the way she kills people, just with so much rage. It's wild. What do you have any thoughts on?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's you see her just like build up and like reach this place that's just completely out of control. And she's able to, I guess, because she like turns so quick and people underestimate her, she's able to like kill like a man who, and I could probably, if it was like a hand-to-hand fight, could probably
she blindsides him with a pitchfork.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, you weren't finished.
No, I'm done.
Oh, I think it's just also interesting because we're looking at like her home life, her upbringing, and like what she wants, and what she wants is what many people would call a pipe dream. And it's like such a vicious business that like you're one out of so many people, and you're probably not going to get exactly what you want. You might be able to get something if you try really hard and stuff like that, but like being like a big star, I don't know, maybe then it was easier. Now it's like you have so many people out there trying to make it. But you also look at her home life and you see that like her dad, I guess, got injured, and so he's
well, he had the Spanish flu, and then it paralyzed.
Yeah, it paralyzed him.
Her mom is so afraid of it, and just really worried about her going into town and just doing whatever she wants, basically. But then she's overbearing with Pearl, and basically doesn't want her to have anything, and so you can totally see a lot of Pearl's home life and her like fear of just living there and just everything being so whatever. But the breakdown of Pearl, like she's not just like a psychopathic killer, but like where we end up with her at the very end, she's reached like complete mental breakdown. So
So the movie theater scene is very interesting because we actually get to see more of the town. We get to see more of the downtown area. Whereas in X, we're pretty much stuck on the barn, like in the barn at the house. We get to kind of expand outwards. So the movie theater scene is very interesting because she is watching, what is it called? Something Follies.
Oh yeah.
Hold on, why am I forgetting the name of it? This is
going to be a trivia question one day, Hunter.
It is. Oh. I can definitely see it.
I feel like it's a P, like Prairie Follies or something Follies.
Paris Follies?
No. But yeah, she's going to see this because it has a lot of dancers in it, and she wants to be one of those dancers. And it's like a real, like, this is like the 20s or earlier? 1918.
Yes, 1918.
And so she's like, it's pure black and white, but to her, this is the only cinema she knows, and she's just like, I want to be one of those dancers. And
Palace Follies.
What is it?
Palace Follies.
Palace Follies. And she loves
Trivia question. There you go.
The movie, and she tries to go out. She's like me. She tries to go out to the cinema every chance she can get.
Oh man, the dinner scene after. Well, let's talk about the scarecrow scene for a minute because we just completely skipped over
before the dinner scene that we can get to real quick.
So she meets the projectionist played by our Superman coming up, David Cornsweet. And he clips the scene from Palace Folly, like the actual film, and gives it to her. I'm like, all right, good luck splicing that together where it makes any fucking sense, dude.
I'm sure like, if it's just like people dancing, I'm sure he clipped it back together and edited a little part.
It probably would look a little janky, but that might not even be that unusual
back then.
Yeah.
Back then.
Yeah, apparently he also sleeps there at work also.
Yeah.
It was cool because he described himself as a nomad, and he's like, I just go wherever I want, and then
no, he I think he used the word bohemian.
Bohemian, you're right.
Which is great because Howard brings up in X that he says that Kid Cudi's character is a bohemian, and he had to take care of a bohemian before in X. So I wonder if he's talking about having to bury the body of the projectionist who calls himself a bohemian.
Oh, and to speak of that, we did mention in the X review that we were curious about the car. We were wondering if it was the same car, and we found out with watching it that it's not the same car. It looks very different, but it's in like the same position. So we know that Pearl has like an MO, like they kill people and they put the car in the same place
in the lake. Yeah.
So I don't know why they do that, and then what happens to the car after that.
The cars just sit in the lake.
Yeah, but like if you're gonna put another car later,
I don't know. I mean,
you just kind of pile cars on it.
Maybe that lake is all cars at this point.
More than likely it is.
Cars and alligators.
Which again, skipping towards the end, since we already talked about her killing him and putting his body in the lake with a car. That has one of my favorite lines in this movie where she's like, "War, poor Johnny." She's screaming French at him, and she's like, "Good day, poor Johnny." She's like waving. She's completely batshit crazy at this point.
Yeah. It's a thing.
So back to where we were. After she gets done with the movie, she is riding home, which again, scene looks exactly like Wizard of Oz with the sun, the cornfield, the little bike, and then the picture the film that he clipped off flies away into the cornfield, and then we get a weird scene where she's dancing with a scarecrow that she finds. Then she straddles it, looks down, sees the projectionist's face for a quick second, and then I guess she fucks the scarecrow.
Yeah, I mean, as much as you can with the scarecrow. But when that film thing flew in the corner, I was like, Pearl, give it up.
You're not finding it.
Never finding that thing. I'm sorry, it's gone. And then, but yeah, I just wanted that. My only note, other than the scarecrow thing, is really funny, but then also plays into her big like curiosity and stuff. But the face of the scarecrow, it's very creepy.
Yeah,
it looks like a dead man.
It does, yeah.
And I'm just creeped out the whole time. Sorry, Carrie, do you have any thoughts on the scene?
Yeah, it's an interesting scene. But I think it connects pretty well. It helps connect the movie with X because you get a sense of her sexuality and her desire. And I don't know, obviously there's not a lot of outlets for her to express that, I guess. And
not really.
I think that scene is like showing
back then.
Yeah, she like is tempted to cheat on her husband with the projectionist and chose not to at that point.
I think I mean it also just shows like her theatricality because she dances with the scarecrow and she just like it's like her. And
I think it further shows, in addition to, we've already seen the goose scene, I think at this point, but I think it further shows her like when she's alone, like her total lack of inhibition.
Yep.
So we get like in that like one scene, we get like a lot of some good horror comedy,
weirdness.
Sure, weird. The themes of like sexuality, and also the themes of performance and choosing to perform whenever you can.
I love the themes in both X and Pearl of sexuality, and more specifically how the porn industry goes from one medium to another. Because in this one, the projectionist shows Pearl like it's a film called A Free Ride, which was one of the earliest, I guess, porn videos. And he even has the thing where it's like, I have a feeling that these are going to be, big very soon from like international films, which they were because, the box office and things like that with a lot of different adult videos. But then in X, you have them going from the adult theaters to Lance Henderson's character talking about people can watch porn in the privacy of their own home. So it's kind of going from one medium to another.
Yeah,
Any comments on?
I don't have a ton to say on that topic.
Well, I think you pretty well summarized it.
I think that's why, yeah. And I mean, I do think it's interesting how this character comes into her life, and he's like please don't spill that Sprite out of the cup. She spilled things on my computer before. That's why I have a new computer. but I'll tell the story another time. But the character represents like infatuation, sexual interests and attraction, but also like just like we were talking about how he describes himself as bohemian, and he shows her like this naughty film, and he's like, I bet you never seen anything like that before, huh? And it just kind of represents a way out and just a different vibe and a different way of being that she's not used. She's never really seen anybody who's like that before, who just does what they want when they want and doesn't have like a mom telling them they'll never amount to anything. And
especially coming from, it seems like a very religious family as well, because they pray before every meal, before they go to bed. So she comes from a very closed off, not only isolated incident, but she comes from an isolated religious household. So he comes in and completely screws up her mindset of like, oh, there is more out there than just being stuck in one location, with this kind of religious, family. Like I can go there. I can go to France. I can go to, these places. And it takes this kind of, some could say like the devil in disguise, this snake in the grass being the projectionist, to bring that out of Pearl as well. So again, a lot of religious symbolisms as well that Ty West likes to add small amounts in his films, I've noticed. But also a very funny line when he goes, I can imagine you up there in one of these movies. And then, of course, Mia Goth plays Maxine, who is in one of these movies in X. So it's really funny. Like the kind of watching X and then watching Pearl and vice versa, you can really catch on these little like Easter eggs and then these kind of funny jokes about like Mia Goth playing both Maxine and Pearl and what these kind of jokes could be about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting too, because I think Pearl does not seem to really object to that idea. So you could see a scenario where Pearl would also be willing to do porn in order to become famous. And like she has this strong desire to be desired and loved. And that's a lot of what's driving Maxine as well.
Yeah. So like an interesting parallel between like how Pearl and Maxine are really similar in a lot of ways, and they're played by the same actress too.
Yeah.
All right. So after that scene, I believe we have the scene where her and her mother are talking about. There's 8 cents missing from her the money she gave for her father's medicine. She says she got some candy on the way home, and her mom just takes dinner from her.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which sounds weird, but I really think that happened.
Yeah. I mean, it goes into the mom's idea that she's just going out doing whatever she wants and not telling anyone, and just spending her mother's money on candy when and it's stuff that's like I don't know, it's just like you're saying, she comes from a very strict household, and yeah.
We also meet Ruth, which is Pearl's sister-in-law. That's Howard's sister.
Oh, okay. I didn't get that connection, but yeah.
Yeah. So she comes in. She plays a big part in this movie as well, especially towards the end of the movie. She tells Pearl that there is a traveling like dancing crew that takes one person from each state, and they go to different USO tours for troops and like army fighters, and they put on this show, and they're doing auditions in town that weekend. And that's where Pearl can see her opportunity to kind of escape.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I had to drink a lot of water.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, because we get it's the order of events is really interesting, because and we'll I guess we'll get into it. She has a whole fight with her mom.
Mm-hmm.
And
one of the best scenes in the movie.
Well, she's kind of flirted with the idea of killing her father to like end his pain, and just like also she has this like, just like she's very curious about sex, she's also very curious about death and killing things. And of course, she gets it with like the animals and stuff, but she's also like, thinking about her dad, like, you don't have a good quality of life, I might as well just end it for you, because she likes doing it, and she feels like maybe this is something she can use as a gift for him, I guess. And so she, there's times where she just like one time where she just puts her hand on his face or whatever, and like acts like she's gonna, or his neck actually, and acts like she's gonna like choke him to death.
She sends him off on the by the alligator to try to throw him off.
Yeah, she's about to like pop him off the thing, and her mom stops her, and you can see like his eyes, like just fear in his eyes, like no one wants to be eaten by an alligator. So
no, that sounds awful.
Yeah. So yeah, then we get into this big scene where she has a fight with her mom, and like I forgot from the first time I watched Pearl, I forgot that I thought there was an argument, and then later the thing with the mom happened. It all happens in one thing. They just have an argument that goes south, and then her mom ends up not dead right away, but like dying, just burned to a crisp and dying on the basement stairs, the cellar stairs.
Ah, that was so brutal. This scene reminded me so closely to the Toni Collette. Is it Alex Wolff or
Alex
not
Wolff?
Wolff?
Yep.
Yeah.
Alex.
That their fight in Hereditary.
Yes.
Because they're both going back and forth with each other, and it just gets louder and louder, and they start screaming. And it's great that the thunder and the lightning are in the background, because it really adds this kind of dark and dreary surroundings, which I also love, that like compared to the outside, which is all bright and all these fields and all these movies and this glitz and glamour, and then she goes back to her home and it's dimly lit, it's isolated, it's cold, it doesn't feel like a home. So then it all comes up to this like literal boiling point where, you know, Maxine or Pearl has the great "I'm a star" line and pushes her mom into the fire, and then realizing, by the way, great fire stunt. And right before, like, she's watching it, she's shocked. Pearl then takes the water, which I'm not sure, is that water still cold or was it boiling? Because I think that's the one that has the corn that was cooking in it. So that might have been warm water.
Maybe it was a very hot water.
And, like, boiling water, and then threw it on her. So maybe she was trying to help, or maybe she was trying just to end her suffering a little bit more.
Maybe, or just torture her more. I don't know.
I think it was to try to get the fire out.
Yeah, I think so.
Like,
that's
otherwise she could have just let her keep burning for longer.
But then the house would burn down. So I think you can see it either way.
Yeah, that probably shows just like the duality of Pearl, where, you know, she has this like big murderous side where she hates and stuff, and then she has like another side to her that, you know, seems sweet, and like, you know, she actually, and there she does have in like her speech where she talks about like actually not blaming her mama and stuff, and so I feel like she has like that side. It just starts to get really lesser and lesser as the other side starts to take over. There's a couple things you said. One, you likened Pearl to Hereditary, which I think is amazing. But then also, Pearl's mom catching fire reminds me of, and if you haven't seen Hereditary, go see Hereditary and then come back and watch this. Or just skip over like this next thing I'm going to say. Because her mom on fire reminded me of Peter's dad on fire. So
yeah, because they were both like just looking at it and just kind of shocked at like how fast that happened.
Engulfed in flame. Yeah, I mean, of course, one happens because of supernatural means, and one is just a lady was caught on fire. And I like that the lady, Pearl's mother, is played by Tandy Wright, who's a New Zealand actress. And I just wanted to give her a shout out because I thought she was really good, especially like in that scene. I was like, wow, like it's not just Mia Goth. I mean, this movie with Pearl only has just a few people in the cast. There's 1, 2, 3.
I love Emma Jensen Poro as Mitzi.
Yeah, she's really good as well. Especially in that end scene. Like, you can really feel her fear. You can feel her trying to work out how to get out of this situation. I love that. Like, I don't know. I think when I first watched the movie, I assumed that she did get the part and she just like finally admitted it. But on this rewatch, I feel like you can't really tell whether she actually got the part or she just thinks that's because Maxine is very. That's what Pearl. She wants. Maxine. That's what Pearl wants to hear.
Yeah. I mean, I think okay, I see what you're saying, because they did have a conversation about, you know, you got the part because you're pretty and you're exactly what they want. And, you know, you get everything. It must be nice to live that kind of life.
Well, she doesn't say that until after Mitzi says, like, but I think Mitzi, after hearing her basically admit to killing a whole bunch of people.
And cheating on Howard, by the way.
Yeah. And Maxine keeps saying, like, no, I know you got it. I know you got it. Just tell me. Don't lie to me. And I think Mitzi thinks she's going to make her mad by keeping saying no. She's like, okay, well, maybe I'll just say I got the part. And that'll
leave me alone.
Yeah. And there was no winning in that situation.
That whole scene is just my favorite scene, I think, probably.
So good.
Because you have the whole... you have like the dialogue between them, but then you have when the camera starts to not cut away from Mia Goth. I think it's just incredible, her whole thing. And she's just like so real in that, you know, she becomes that character, and just like the way she's like crying during it, just opening up and just, laying it all out there. And I'm just like, you're really getting into like this character psyche, and, she's like, talking about how she feels bad about certain things, how she likes killing. It's a lot easier than, you would think, kind of a deal. She just, that scene is just so incredible. And then after you see all of that, it cuts back to
Mitzi, and she's just sitting there like, I don't know how to process any of this.
And she's just like, okay. And then when she gets up and like starts to walk out, because I'm like, you gotta get the hell out of there. And then
I'd be running. I don't care. I'm running.
Well, that's what I'm thinking is I'm like, you need to start running. But then I look and I go, she's in heels.
Well, and also she's trying to, and I think this is the smartest choice, is to try to get out of there and have Pearl think she's still, they're still friends. Everything's fine. Like, it's all good. And so she's trying to get out of there, but also maintain everything. Because I think she knows she's probably not going to necessarily win if Max...
Pearl.
Oh my god!
So the only thing about that, though,
same actress.
I think you're right in like what she's thinking, Mitzi. But I think the problem is, I think Pearl had already decided what she was doing.
Oh yeah.
When she's like,
she was toying with her.
Yeah, she's like, you get everything you want. I know you got that part and stuff like that.
Which is great that she brought up that, Mitzi always gets what she wants because she is young and blonde, just like Bobby Lynn was in X when she was like, you always get what you want because you're young. And older Pearl is like, enjoy it while you can. Funny thing, someone online noticed this. The both blondes in the movie both get fed to the alligator.
Oh.
Because at the end, you see Mitzi's head being chopped off as she throws it to the alligator, and then Bobby Lynn gets thrown into the...
You have like I forget what it is, but you have something over here cut, like the screen cut with her chopping up Mitzi. And I'm like, I did not think they were going to go there and show that. And then I'm like, holy shit.
Pearl also says in X, like, I don't like blondes. So she resentment. She holds it.
Why wouldn't you? That's why the people who could have changed your life told you that you're not good enough because you're not blonde. You're not what we're looking for.
Ooh, I didn't. Great catch there, Carrie. I forgot about that line. That was a good catch.
I caught it while we were watching X, and I was like, "Yeah, I think Mitzi is blonde." But I forgot about the line, the exact line they say to her, the people who are selecting the dancers, or that they said that to her, like that she wasn't blonde, and
the way they talk to her, like I love that whole scene with her going to do the thing,
the dancing cutting from her. With the line dancers and then her just going crazy on the stage. Yeah. Hilarious.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's why I love the combination or the what is a word where it's something like next to each other. It starts with an A. It's like they're
akin?
No. They're like right next to each other, kind of going hand in hand with this big theatricality and like theater and just like everything's a show, and then murder and like the darkest parts of humanity and stuff like that. And in this one, like this other one scene, you get you get her doing the big dance with the line dancing, and then her going off and just screaming and I'm a star. Kind of like screaming, and then they have to like drag her off the stage, and then cut to the very end where you have like the most like macabre display that you've ever seen with her sitting at the dinner table, in like such a nice outfit with her dead parents and a pig that's
a
like
pig's head. And then Howard comes in and is just like, what the fuck happened?
What am I looking at right now? Like,
which my question is, what happened between him and seeing that and X to make him like willingly go along with this?
I think that's I don't know if that's an issue where we don't get that, where we don't get the in between.
It's not like a major problem I have. I'm wondering like what happened to him, because he seems generally upset and shocked when he walks into that house, and then the Howard we get in X is completely ruthless. He is willing to kill anybody for Pearl. I wonder if it's kind of a mix of like a Stockholm syndrome, where it's like he is so in love with Pearl that he can see past any of the major problems that she has.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's like a major problem. I think I think we can it's kind of cool. You can kind of like make assumptions about the rest of Pearl and Howard's lives. But I just had a thought where I was like, you know what? I would kind of maybe like the Howard movie. Where we get, like, Howard at war, thinking about Pearl.
He did fight through both world wars. That is a great movie right there. If you want to do like a war horror movie.
Yeah. And then we can show his psyche breaking down to where he's the way he is. And I don't know, that would be really cool. Maybe they do the trilogy and then maybe Ty West goes, I'm not done. I'm going to do 4. And he comes out with the 4th Pearl movie, whatever you call this series.
I just call it the X trilogy. But another thing that Demi brought up that was also tied into Wizard of Oz is that Mitzi could be seen as the cowardly lion of the group, because she's scared to go next when she's at the dance. She's always worried about taking that next step. But they also brought up the fact that if she didn't make Pearl switch with her, so Pearl would go in first and then she would go in after, maybe she would still be alive, because she would see Mitzi walks out and it's like, I didn't get it, your turn.
Yeah.
So now Pearl wouldn't have that in her mind of, oh, she's blonde, she's young, of course they picked her, and then maybe Mitzi would still be alive.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Sorry. So yeah, I mean,
well, I was gonna bring up, I don't know, it's just the we kind of glazed over it a little bit, just like the it's one of the scariest scenes that I think I've ever seen in a horror movie was after the big monologue and Mitzi being walking out, just the like chase, because she walks out and then that Pearl's probably going to go after her, but then just the way she's wondering if Pearl's going to go after her, and then Pearl comes out and just like slowly picks up the thing. You're like, oh no, you can just slowly see it unfold, and you're like, uh-oh. But then I'm just
cool
like,
you can see Pearl in the background and you see Mitzi in the front ground. She turns around and she starts kind of running for it.
Yeah.
And then I'm sitting there thinking, like, maybe she can actually get out of there. But then she can't make it far, because then people would know about Pearl, and they don't.
Yep.
Next, so which is maybe the problem with making prequels sometimes. Is like,
well, I think it's to explain, like, because Maxine in X, she tells Pearl, she's like, just because you didn't live the life that you wanted to doesn't mean you get to like take it out on other people and prevent me from living my life. And like, I think Pearl, like, part of the point of Pearl is to like show like how not quite how she got to be this way, because obviously there's like something in her that is like very violent, And I think no matter what happened would have turned out that way, but you get to see like why Pearl specifically would want to take it out on this group of people, and like I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great point. But yeah, I like the idea that, like, as Carrie said, we get to kind of watch X first, and then when Pearl comes out, now we're getting to understand more about this character that we didn't get to see in X because they're the villains, but now you get to show us this interesting backstory of them kind of not living their dream, and when they see someone else living their dream and they're doing what they want, it's that jealousy. It's that pullback of like, well, of course, you know, Mitzi would get it. She's blonde. She's younger than I am. She looks better than I am. It always comes back to Pearl being jealous of one thing or the other that kind of leads down these whole 2 movies.
Yeah. Makes sense. There is one thing that's kind of random that I wanted to bring up, just because like we're just like probably kind of sort of at the end. I think we're just going to pick up like things, just make sure that there's not little things that we didn't cover that we wanted to bring up. There's one thing that I noticed, and I think this was in this movie, was Pearl wished like upon a star, and then we saw a shooting star. And then I'm like, I think she probably wished for a better life or to be a star. And then
when she's doing the prayer at night.
And then I'm like, nothing came from that. It's just
it's all.
I guess bullshit. Maybe you kind of expect something to, and then it just doesn't. It's like, well, that's life. But it also goes to like the theatricality of it and the Wizard of Oz and the fantastical. Like you hope maybe there's something, I don't know.
I love how there's a shot in X where we first meet Pearl. She's in the window seal. They switched that in this one where it shows Pearl's mother in that same window seal, and they're just kind of staring straight out, like they're kind of mirroring each other. Like Pearl became what her mother is. Like you can't escape this kind of becoming like your parents type thing.
That's definitely a big theme of the nihilism that Pearl witnesses. You know, it's like, you know, like I was talking about, like her dream is to become something that is unlikely, and there's people that will just judge you based on the most trivial of things. And even though Pearl could be a very good dancer, they're just like, we don't need you. We're being selected. And then that tore her and just broke her psychologically so much that, you know, she gave into this self-fulfilling prophecy that she will never amount to anything, and she just kind of breaks down and becomes the thing that, you know, her mother said she would become. And, you know,
she even uses a line that her mom used on her when she kills Mitzi. She goes, "It's not about what I want anymore. It's about what I have to do." So she's literally becoming her mom, like, because more than likely her mom's dreams got crushed when she was younger, and she grew into that. Pearl's, by her mother, got her dreams crushed, and now she's taking that on other people. So it's kind of like this family was always going to be kind of cursed to kind of not amount to anything because, you know, one massive opportunity was taken away from them.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle.
During that dinner scene where the mom gets caught on fire, she said something. She goes, what is the exact line? Because it is hurtful to Pearl, where she's like, remember that disappointing feeling, because that's what I feel every time I see you.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god!
And like you said, it goes back to the Annie Graham line where she goes, you know, I never wanted a son, or I never wanted you, or something. She goes.
We also found out in that 6-minute monologue that Pearl and Howard were gonna have a baby. Like, she was pregnant and the baby was killed.
Well, she didn't want the baby,
Yeah, so I don't know if it was a miscarriage or maybe she did something to cause it, or, you know, we're not getting into that deeper topic, but the fact that she was like, I didn't even know how to handle my own life. How would you expect me to handle a baby?
Yeah.
Like, she was already done at this point because her mom seems to keep putting her down, which could then lead to her mental issues, which was, you know, back then you wouldn't know what they were. You just called it a sickness. So you have all these themes of mental health, of religion, of, you know, finding who you are, of, you know, sexual exploration, just all in these two films that are very, very different from each other, but they work as a duo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't wait to see what Ty West does with Maxine.
Yeah. Same.
Just if we're kind of like wrapping it up, I want to touch on one other thing, and then, you know, maybe we can go to final thoughts, unless you guys also want to touch on something else. But just the way it ends after Howard comes home and you see her just staring into the camera.
The long credit scene of her just like smiling is hilarious.
Like 5 minutes, and it, like, I think what it does is it kind of like shows you just her mentality throughout the whole movie, and just like the breakdown where it goes from like maybe it's genuine smiling at the very beginning, like to see Howard, and then it just breaks down into like crazy, like everything is messed up, my life is over, you know, just end it kind of a deal.
I love the entire credits of this movie. The opening credits are funny because it's like one long take, and then she's feeding the alligator, and the alligator flies up in the air to get the food, and it's just like the stock image of like Pearl in the old school font. It's so funny, and like it's used in a way that's really interesting, but also works with the time that films. It feels like a film of that era would be.
Yeah, I think that's why I like the vibe and the style of it so much.
Mm-hmm.
Feels very classical versus the 70s like gritty X, which is also cool, but like I don't know, I think I prefer the other one a little bit.
Carrie, any final thoughts?
Yeah, that's it. You brought that up. I was thinking about that too. Like, X is like these very muted tones, like clearly designed to follow the style of like a 70s movie like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And Pearl is like, the colors are extremely vibrant, especially on Pearl. Like, it just, especially as the movie goes on towards the end of the movie, she's dressing in these reds, these really bright reds, really bright red lipstick. Even her overalls, they just come across as this like brighter blue. Like, the color palette is so different.
Yeah.
Again, I love the use of how the town seems very fantasy-like it's like a Hollywood, like a downtown area where like a movie theater, and then contrast that with the isolation, the dark, the cold, the barn, you know, out in the middle of nowhere farmhouse that Pearl lives in. So you kind of have that dichotomy too of like so many different color patterns and uses of, you know, different styles of shooting, from like shooting old school film in the theater scenes to now doing kind of these really cool camera tricks I really love.
Yeah. And that's why I like Pearl, I think, a lot, is because you have the two. You have the bright, theatrical, colorful whimsical, colors, and that's so pretty and vibrant, mixed with the macabre and the dark. And I just think that's cool a lot of the times.
Which is cool because depending on what style of film you like more, like I like that kind of 70s kind of Texas Chainsaw feeling movie, so I like X a little bit more. But if you're into the classic Telecolor, like Wizard of Oz kind of fantasy films, you may like Pearl a little bit more. So
yeah, I like 70s style a lot more too.
Oh, I know about. I'm saying just like depending on what you feel, you may gravitate towards one or the other.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Also, one more thing before we go. Maybe I'm looking too far into this, but Carrie did bring up her red attire at the end. Could that be a red ruby slippers homage that Dorothy is wearing?
Yeah,
because it's like really really like a bright red color, and that would stand out in the muted background, just like the slippers do.
Yeah, like when she put on the thing, she's finally like accepted that she's home and like this is her home. And there's but when Dorothy goes home and she's finally home, she has recontextualized and she's happy to be there, and she's like, I missed you guys, I'm so glad to be here. And Pearl, she's home, but she looks at it as like, I'm home.
I don't know. The end, I think that smile finally broke her, but I also think that's why she set up the family members the way she did. She's home. She's surrounded by family. Like, I mean, kind of like Dorothy was. Like, it's a darker like take on that, but Dorothy comes home to her parents and things like that, and she's happy. Pearl is broken, but she has been trained to think that home is her safe space. So when she goes and puts on her red outfit, she ends up home surrounded by a mother and father, but it's like the complete opposite ends of the spectrum.
Well, yeah, because she does have that whole, when she's mentally broken, and she goes, and she does have that whole thing where she's on the steps with her dead mother, and then she has the vision of her mother's alive, kind of a deal. Yeah. So maybe to her, she is seeing them alive there with a beautiful dinner and everything's fine. So,
and then when Howard comes in, that's what we see what the reality of it is, which is, oh, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything else. Can you guys think of anything else before we head out?
I'm glad that we watched X and Pearl because I like them both more than I did the first time. And it makes me more excited for Maxine.
Oh, yeah, me too.
And we'll see.
Carrie?
Yeah, this was really fun. And it was just like a joy to watch both of these movies.
Yeah, these movies are really fun. You can kind of put, like, especially X, you can put X on and just kind of enjoy it. I think Pearl requires a little bit more of a kind of a focused mindset, just because there is a lot of dialogue that you can like read into. But like, I think I can put on X anytime and enjoy it as a fun slasher, and I can also watch it deeply and like dive deep into it and get different meanings of it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. All right, Chad and Carrie, where can people find you online before we head out?
Just the normal places. Check out Chadwick Webb YouTube channel. Rankings are there. Also check out the Dill Pickle Movie Network. If you like Oscars, if you like Marvel trivia, if you like drafts, movie drafts, and all stuff like that. And check out all of our letterboxes. I think Hunter now has a letterbox.
I have one, yeah.
So check out all that. And
what's your letterbox?
You can just find it. I think it's Chadwick Webb, something like that.
Carrie, do you have one?
Yeah, I have one.
What is you have like an interesting?
Oh yeah, I have a username.
What is it?
English Slayfest.
That's what it is.
I love that name. And then mine is WTP 1998.
Nice.
All right, guys. If you did enjoy this, please hit the like button, subscribe to Welcome to Primetime down below. Remember, stay scared.